Hey cuties, I'm Miles Sexton, a content creator, activist, and loud and proud disruptor of the norm. On Our Private Bits, we talk about the things and people that don't get talked about enough, or at all. Trust me, as a sober, HIV-positive, non-binary person, I would know. Join me as I chat with people in my life and from around the world whose stories deserve to be heard. Maybe you'll learn something new, and you will definitely LOL. Our Private Bits is also part of the Acast Creator Network. All right, cuties. Today on Our Private Bits, we have Mirian Njon joining, and she is a content creator, a DIY expert, and is so incredibly stylish. Want to say hi?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here.
I am so glad that we get to do this. We have known each other,
Forever.
like in passing, it's been forever, ever. Literally since we were babies, I swear.
No, literally babies.
What was like, do you have like a first memory of like when we met? I don't know if you have one.
You know what? I just remember, I remember we did the magazine.
Yes.
And then I remember I would just see you around and just like you always had your signature long, gorgeous hair.
Oh.
And then your style was just always so like different. Like, I don't know, you just had like an aura. So
Oh, thanks.
yeah. I think of like Fashion Art Toronto too.
Yes.
Like, yeah, stuff like that.
It's true. I feel like, you were one of those people that I like always looked forward to seeing at Fashion Week, like, and
Aw.
just because like you were so, I don't know, you were so kind. And like,
Thank
I feel
you.
like there wasn't a lot of that energy in those spaces,
Accurate.
So like, I don't know. I feel like I would find you and just be like, okay, I want to stick beside you like the whole
Oh
time.
my God.
Like you were
Thank
just
you.
so sweet. And
That
also
is
like,
the vibes I like to give people.
yeah,
So.
and you were killing it. You always look so good too
Thank
in your little
you.
outfits. I think we've both been on our fashion journeys,
Oh, such an evolution. Like, really?
When I look back at some of those outfits, I'm like, what was I thinking?
Same. I feel like, okay, girl, you've come a long way.
I feel you. But I wouldn't change it for the world.
No, it's part of the process. Yeah.
Agreed. And now it's just been so, honestly, it makes me so happy just seeing and watching you bloom, I think, into this magical creature that I think
Aw.
that you are online. It's
Thank
been so
you.
cool. Like, has there been, like, I don't know, like, what was the moment for you that you felt like things were really starting to take off online?
You know, I had some moments where I would like go viral and get like reposted
Yes.
by media or even with TikTok. I had a certain video go viral and had like maybe 16 million plays on it.
So
It was like to
cool.
like a Doja Cat song and
I love
stuff.
it.
It was like early days and I was like, "Oh wow, we're doing something."
Yeah, I love that, and it's I don't know, I think it's so cool, and I love to, like, get to see you putting your twists on things, and especially, like, your DIY stuff. I'm always,
Thank
like,
you.
blown away. Like, do you teach yourself how to do all of these things? Like
Yes.
yeah, it's
And
amazing.
that's the gag is that
Yeah.
like a lot of times everything is I'm doing it for the first time.
Yes.
So I don't even know how it's gonna go. I am gonna have maybe one or two breakdowns. I'm gonna have
Yes,
like
but they don't get to see that.
no, I'll save it.
Yeah.
It's a private moment. But like
Yeah.
it's everything is I'm learning it and it's always like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Well, I just love it. Now, something that like has always attracted me, I think, to you has been the fact that you have. I always want to make sure that I'm saying it right. It's like albinism.
Yeah,
Okay, I
albinism.
think a
Yeah.
lot of people say albino, but it's like albinism is like
The
the
condition.
condition
Yeah.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
So, and coming from a super small rural town in Canada, like I never got to see someone so magical like
Oh,
you.
thank you.
So it was super cool when we talked about it when we first were connecting. And
Yeah.
so like I guess just for those who don't know what albinism is, like could you
Mhm.
explain it a little bit?
Yeah, well, basically, albinism is a lack of pigment and or melanin
Hmm.
in the skin, hair, and eyes. I mean, it happens in like all types of mammals. So I think a
Yes,
lot of people are used to seeing like maybe it in animals, but obviously it happens with people as well,
totally.
and of all races, and yeah, that's essentially what it is. Yeah.
That's so cool. And like, I guess like how for you, like navigating your identity because you are a woman of color
Hmm.
but you have but you're also albino. But
Yeah.
like how has that journey been like for you, I guess? Because I feel like I don't know. I read some of
No,
the
yeah.
comments sometimes and it's like it's interesting to see how people have a lot of opinions on it. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I am perpetually a topic of discourse.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, I didn't even
Didn't sign up for
ask
this.
for
Yeah.
this. But I mean, and I think that that's kind of my life is that
Yes.
it's almost like born with a level of a spotlight and
Mhm.
attention that I didn't necessarily have any control over or want, or even as a kid necessarily understand.
Mhm.
And it's figuring out how to navigate that,
Yes.
because I feel like for me, my identity is such a work in progress, which I think is, very multifaceted, but like I'm an intersection of so many different things
Yes.
together, whether
Absolutely.
that's a woman, a Black woman, an African woman, a
Yes.
woman with albinism. Like there's all these layers that even, within themselves somewhat contradict each other.
Mhm.
And, for me, that's just always been something to navigate and to learn and even to find power in, I think,
Totally.
because there's a lot of um freedom in it, in the fact that I'm so hard to pin down.
Yes, but I love that about you. You know, it's part of what I think just makes you so magical. And I think
Thank
like
you.
historically though, I think a lot, and animals and I think like, culturally too, people with albinism were like very looked at as like very spiritual beings, wasn't it? Like,
I think that there's definitely a mix of interpretations that
mhm.
other people have kind of placed on that,
Yes.
whether you whether they kind of interpret people with albinism as having somewhat mythical or kind of
Yeah.
like fantastical qualities, or the inverse is they just, they recognize that it is something that is uncommon and unusual, and then they put a negative connotation on
Mhm.
it and it becomes like a negative thing.
Totally.
So either side of the pendulum.
Yes. And, like, how was that, I guess, growing up? Like, I think especially I don't know, like, when you're, like, a kid, I feel like as soon as you have, like, one thing that makes you different than everyone else, it's like they just, like, hyper fixate on that. Did you
Yeah.
did you face a lot of, like, critique, like,
I
when you were
mean,
younger?
yeah, I think for me, especially I grew up in Detroit,
Okay,
and
cool.
I when I was young, and my mom has told me these kind of stories because
Mhm.
I was like too young to even remember it, but like sometimes people would, if somebody was staring at me or something, I would just be like, "What?" Like I would just
Yeah,
like call their bluff
I
about
love
it,
it.
and then like
Ah, so good.
I think especially too because with, I'm so fair skinned and then everybody in my family is dark skinned. So
Yes,
that just already discombobulates people.
totally. They just don't
They
know how
already
to how
don't
to
know how to place.
understand.
And so, but I definitely think that, you know, a lot of that boldness from childhood kind of gave way to when I was more getting older and becoming like an adolescent, and you just become so much more self aware.
Mhm.
And the last thing you want to do is stand out or, be identified for anything.
Totally.
There was like layers of insecurity that start to creep in,
Yes.
because I think that's a hard time just without having any of those extra
Exactly.
layers. It's enough.
Yeah,
And
our bodies
so
are changing so much, both
exactly.
physically and mentally,
And
right?
and there's so much there. And so I think for me, I kind of went into my shell a bit more
Mhm.
during that time. And then from there, it was like just the journey of finding my way out.
Totally. What has helped you, I guess, like, reclaim your power in, like, I guess, like, your identity to who you are now? Because even, like, when we first met, I think I was so introverted. I feel like you were super introverted, like, I was so shy, like, yeah, like, what's worked for you?
I think for me, um, and it's kind of so simple, but it's one of the first steps, especially in my case with
Mm.
albinism and accepting it.
Yes.
There's a certain point where you just have to be like, guess what? It's not going anywhere.
You know?
So you're gonna just need to like adjust. You're gonna need
Yeah.
to work this. You're gonna need to flip it. It's like something where it was like, well, if people are already looking and it's
Mhm.
already something, so what can I do with that attention? Or
Yes.
how can I alchemize that into something that's going to be beneficial for me instead of trying to run from it? Because at the end of the day, I'm never going to blend in. It
No.
doesn't matter if I'm standing in a group of Black people, Caucasian
Yes.
people, it doesn't matter. I'm
Totally.
always going, there's going to be a little extra something with me. And I think that part of me is just owning that and being like, yeah, yes, and
I love it. I love it. Was there like a moment, I guess, like on your journey that you felt like there was like a big that the shift happened though, like internally, or was this like slow progressions like over time?
I think for me, getting into modeling helped me because
Mhm.
the fashion industry and the fashion industry is a place that welcomes and celebrates
Yes.
differences.
Totally.
And it's and again, like it's one of those things where it becomes like a superpower
Yes.
where, in a casting of all these people, it's a perk that I look different.
Totally.
It's a perk that, I can own it and that I can work it and that
Mhm.
I can take it and turn it into something that people want to see or that people are,
Totally.
fascinated or transfixed by. Like, I think fashion definitely helped me to kind of come into my own because it helped me to see the beauty in my
Mhm.
differences and the value in it. And also just becoming somebody that, as I think my profile started to rise a little bit
Yes.
more, I would come across other people that I met with albinism
Mhm.
or even people that like, they would DM me and they'd be like, my child has albinism, and I showed them your picture
Yeah.
and things like that. And then I think that there also is a bit more courage to be found when you're a part of something that's bigger than yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I think you're helping to change the world in many ways. Because I think,
Thank
like,
you.
when they don't see people that look like them, there's like this fear and there's a lot of stigma that comes with it, right? So, like, by you putting yourself out there, you're like for everyone else, like you become sort of like that person that they can latch onto that is
Mhm.
like making them feel seen. It's like
Yeah.
I'll never forget like when Sean Ross was in like Katy
Ah,
Perry's like music video for like Alien,
I
and
loved.
I was just like, I remember like trying to find out who he was, because I was like, who, like, this person is amazing. Like, I need to figure out like who they are. And like, I remember finding them on Instagram and just being like so excited. And then I'm trying to remember Diane's like last name, but she's like another,
Deandra
yes,
Forrest.
yeah, like
Yep, yep,
another amazing model,
yeah.
and it's like, I love it. I feel like it's like, I don't know, like you said, like fashion can be a place that we can like celebrate, I think, like individuality and diversity and it
Mhm.
can be a place of like inclusion that's safe, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's, yeah, I think it's so cool.
And
Love
I
that you're doing it.
agree. I remember the early days of IG too. Like I think I like Sean Ross like found me and he like
Yes.
reposted me and
Ah,
stuff.
so
And like,
cool.
and that's like what I love about early IG. It was
Totally.
so like
It wasn't over
grassroots. It
concentrated.
was like
Yeah.
and then it made me love social media. Early
Yes.
Instagram, yeah.
Agreed, agreed. Well, it's like, look at what it did for like Winnie Harlow
I
too,
know.
like
Yeah.
I remember Winnie when she was like, we met as like literally when we were kids as well before she even started modeling. Like she was in
Oh,
my fashion show. It was like her first runway
stop.
show.
Oh
It's
my
just like
God.
bananas, like
See?
it's I just love it. I
I
love that,
love
these
that.
people like you are all being celebrated now. So
Thank you. I love it. It's really been comforting.
totally. I'm sure. And healing, I'm sure
Yeah,
too, right?
very.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause, like, do you find that, like, from, I guess, like, the Black community, like, I feel like there's a lot of opinions,
Mhm.
and it's
Yeah.
like, and, like, I guess people, one of the most common comments I feel like I see in your content sometimes are, well, people, like, telling you that you're not Black. And
Delicious.
I'm just like, and I'm like, I don't know, like, why do you think people say that? I don't know.
You know, I would say that I don't even invest too much
Mhm.
mental energy into trying to answer that
Yeah,
question because I'm never going to get to the answer. The
totally.
answer is going to be an elusive carrot that's always dangling
Yes.
just in front of me, but I think that for me that definitely is a conversation,
Mhm.
and I think because people have, especially in the US, but I think maybe just North America in general, there's
Yes,
so many race is just like an inescapable conversation,
totally.
and, what constitutes as Black and, is it skin color? Is it ancestral background?
Mhm.
Like, is it the texture of your hair? Like, and when is it enough?
Yes.
Is 10% enough? Is 20% enough? And then, it's just
Yes.
all those conversations. And that's why I was saying, like, I feel like I just become like this magnet for those
Yes.
because again, I think people can't pin me down. So then it's
Yes.
just becomes something to latch onto. And I think with the internet and I think just even in real life, I don't try to appease or to make anybody comfortable with
Mhm.
me because there's never going to be something like I've had videos where you can show people your literal DNA results because
Yes.
I think the thing with me is I'm being West African.
Yes.
I'm I'm actually like 100% African.
See,
And
wow.
most people are a mix of
Totally,
things.
exactly.
I'm 100%, like I'm like 99.999%
Wow.
West African.
Yes.
And like the last little dreg is like sub-Saharan African. Like there's nothing else, guys.
Yeah.
And yet,
Totally.
and yet you can show people that
Yes.
and they still will be arguing in your comments. They're
Yeah.
never, someone's gonna be like, well, let me see a parent reveal. Like you're never gonna be satisfied.
No,
I can turn myself inside out. I'm not gonna,
exactly.
I'm not gonna stress about it, but like enjoy and
Yes.
don't get disrespectful or you're gonna get blocked.
Yeah, exactly. But I think you have a really good outlook on it, and I think as you were sort of saying earlier, it's like you can't please everyone. Everyone's always going to have an opinion. You challenge a lot of these like very colonial norms that have been
Hmm.
created, right? And I think it goes beyond like what makes a person black isn't just the like it's not just about the tone of your skin because there's
Hmm.
such a spectrum of
Hmm.
people, like you said, depending on like percentage that's in your genetic or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's like too, because I think it's very like similar to when we look at like the debate with like gender identity, right? And it's
Mm.
like how
Hmm.
everyone has this sort of opinion of like there's only male and female when like we are so complex beings, just not only from a race perspective, but from like how we're like genetically made up biologically for how our gender is. So it's like, like I think I always want to encourage people, I think, on this podcast to just like take a step back,
Yeah.
like learn a little bit more about like how in depth these topics are versus like what you see on the surface.
Yeah. I think people get used to binaries because they're just comfortable.
Yes.
And we forget that life is actually a spectrum. People are a spectrum.
Yes.
And I think that that is harder for people to digest.
It's so true. It is. Because I think when we challenge what they've been taught their whole lives, like people get very uncomfortable,
Get very
So
unsettled.
yeah,
So,
I feel
yeah.
you. I really trust. Like, my partner and I, we posted a video of us buying a house together, and I've never had a video go so viral in my entire life. And people were so angry that a
Oh
non-binary
my
person and a man bought a
gosh.
house. It was just like,
Like,
what is wrong with the
what
world?
what is this doing for you that has just ruined your life?
Right?
Like,
I'm
I'm
like,
so not sorry.
same. Like, I can't imagine living with that much anger and
Stay
hate
mad.
inside of me, right? Exactly. Uh, so what are like, I guess, like in terms of your albinism, like, is there any sort of like health things that come like with it at all? Like, I was curious about that, that people might not be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, not so much, but I think that one thing that people don't realize is that and even to me it's like
Hmm.
interesting to consider the effect that melanin has on your eyes.
Yes.
And so when you lack melanin in your eyes, it can affect just even the way your eyes function. And
Really?
so, yeah. And so people with albinism, like I won't say every single person ever,
Yes.
but predominantly people with albinism tend to
Hmm.
have visual impairments.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I am among them.
Yes.
And and also sometimes people have something called nystagmus,
Okay.
which is basically it's like how your eyes may move a bit and it's something
Mm,
that's involuntary.
okay.
And I've had that like come up with me a lot, even just like when I do video
Yes.
sometimes, and if it's more close up, like people will like comment about like
Ugh.
my eyes or something, or if I'm speaking, people will be like, are you reading from cue cards or something? And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
no, dear, my eyes are moving and I
Yes.
can't control it.
Totally.
Yeah, I need you to Google nystagmus.
Yeah, huh, I've never heard of this. This is like you're teaching
Yeah,
me something
I
new today.
literally
That's so
just had
cool.
this conversation with somebody recently.
Whoa.
And yeah, and I think that again, it's one of those things where it's different and even me sometimes I still have to take a moment to just like sit with it and be like, well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But cuz I think for me it's and maybe a lot of people with albinism can relate to this.
Mhm.
You're just here and you're trying to function like
Yes.
everybody else. I'm trying to put one foot in front of the other and do life just like you. You don't
Yes.
always want to be an educator.
Totally.
You don't
100%.
always
Oh.
want to represent for the whole community every
Mhm.
time you open your eyes. And so I think that for me, sometimes that can wear me out and I
Of
just get tired
course.
of explaining and everything. But I definitely think that there's opportunities like this
Yes.
where we come here and we know what we're going to discuss and
Yeah.
I'm open to it and stuff like that, that I'm happy for it to be an educational moment for people and
Yes.
hopefully it helps them to understand a bit more and hopefully it makes other people with albinism, you know, feel more comfortable with it because we all have it. I mean, and I think that for me, that's been the main thing. Other than that, it's just obviously, sun sensitivity, but
Hmm.
that's, not as hard to overcome.
No, exactly. Rock a fierce parasol and
Yeah, like it's and move forward.
yeah, totally. Well, I appreciate you so much, because like you said, I think it can be really exhausting and a lot of like reactivating. I think of a lot of like our past emotions, when we
Yeah,
have to be the
definitely.
educators all of the time. And
Yeah.
obviously, I educate on different types of topics, but I totally feel you. There's like moments where I'm like, I just can't talk about this
Sometimes you're
anymore.
just like, I'm off duty, y'all.
Yeah,
Like, please.
exactly. Totally. It's not the moment.
Like,
But I appreciate you taking the time
of
because
course.
I think with this podcast, I want it to be this resource for people to like learn new things and to try to just make the world a safer place and just so that people like you don't have to feel like you're always have to be the
I
ambassador, that you
know,
can just live your
right?
life.
Yeah. And I think for me, even discussing it is something that I don't do as much.
Hmm.
And so it's there is like a healing part of that too. Is just
Totally.
talking about it more and getting more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And I think too, it's also at the end of the day, like no one's perfect. Everybody has something.
Yes,
Even
exactly.
Kim Kardashian has psoriasis.
Totally.
Like nobody is perfect, even
No.
the beauty standards.
Yes.
And so I think that there is, an opportunity to just be more human,
Hmm.
but then also that creates vulnerability.
Yes.
And I know me, I'm like a still a shy person. I'm still like private. So there's kind of like a tension between
Hmm.
the two, but I try to overcome it if, it's for a purpose like this.
Of course. I mean, it's hard because I think the more vulnerable we are, it's like the deeper we let people in that they
Yeah,
can like attack
it can
something
be
that can be
scary.
very, very personal to us,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so I appreciate your vulnerability.
Thank you. I'm always trying to practice it and flex it. So I thank you.
Ah, of course. Now, something that we got to kind of do together, but not really, but we
Yeah.
got to be a part of an amazing like billboard campaign for Yorkdale. So
Mhm.
like what was that like when you got the email and you heard that you got to do this? Like what did that like walk me through that for you?
Oh
Like what did
my
that feel like?
gosh. Honestly, I just loved that experience. It was, I mean, anything like on this type of scale, I'm
Yes,
just like, please, I'm in. Like,
totally. Same.
and then obviously being something local in Toronto that was gonna be like a landmark
Yes,
and so visible, I'm like,
totally.
I love it. And then I think, seeing the images and seeing, like, people that I know going to visit it and take pictures with
Yeah.
it. I mean, I did it, like, too.
Yeah,
Like,
same.
it never gets old. I'm first in line. Like,
Literally every time I go to the mall, I'm like, I have to go look.
yeah, and I just for me, it never gets old. Like, I've had that experience a couple times before. I've been blessed enough, and I'm still as giddy as ever,
Yes.
and I'm just thankful because you never know, like, how long things are
Yeah,
gonna last, or you
so
never know,
true.
like, especially in this industry, like, you never know,
No,
and so you have to
exactly.
be present and thankful and really soak it all in.
I totally agree. And I think too, just like having that type of representation on such a large scale at like the
Oh my
biggest
god,
mall, that we
right?
have, like, I don't know. I remember like when I finally got to see it for the first time, I broke down when I got back to my car because I was just like, I've never in my life been able to see someone like me on a billboard like
I
that,
just
like,
You're
ah,
right, and it is really powerful, and
totally.
especially because like, we're there and we're on these billboards, and we are
Yes.
larger than life,
Yeah.
and it's to see yourself like that, and you're right about how much representation plays into that too, because I remember, like, in the pre-production stages of
Yes.
the campaign, like, we had so much discourse about even just how I would style my hair.
Yeah. Oh,
Ye
really?
Yeah, and I was like, "Wow, like, this is really the intersection of black girl model,
Yes.
albinism, and everything is just colliding, like, because and people don't realize,
Yes.
but that's something that's always been a part of my modeling career
Yeah.
and my career is things that are so innocuous that people would never think about.
Mhm.
How is Myron going to style her hair? We were going to talk about it for 2 weeks, honey.
I mean, as you should. I think it's important. It's important to have those boundaries, you know?
Yeah.
And also just like the shoot too was like it was such a I think leading up to it, there was so much like with all the wardrobe. I don't know if you had to do like all the wardrobe
Yeah.
try-ons and stuff, but
Mhm.
and I felt so like I was trying on so many outfits and like
Yeah.
I kind of had to be like this isn't me. And like
Mm.
like I was really trying to like stay true
True
to
and
my
grounded.
identity, of who I was. Um, and like,
Good.
yeah, and then like even I think you started a bit later than me, but like my call
Mhm.
time was like 1 a.m.
Oh,
So it
yeah.
was like I've never done a shoot
Oh, yeah.
overnight before.
Like, what on earth?
I'm like, I have to be fierce at like 3. I think we started shooting at like 3:30 in the
You gotta
morning.
find
And
the
and I was
strength.
like, oh, give me another wind machine.
I
Cause like
know, because honey, we're gonna need to go full Beyonce in order to get this thing done. I
exactly.
know, like, and I love that you did, find your voice and really stand true to that because I
Yes.
think that's one thing that I love about this stage of my career in content creation
Yes.
is that I get to have a voice because
Totally.
as a model, I didn't,
None.
yeah, people don't understand like what the like, night and day, like,
It's so true. And
and I'm like, I can't go back. It's hard to go back.
no, exactly. Like I can't when people like ask me to model for something, I'm like, but is it like, are you asking me to model or am I being Miles?
Yeah,
Because I
yeah, it
can't, I
really
agree with
depends.
you.
It's hard to go back and because, it can be really restrictive and that's what I think is so beautiful about just the way that media has evolved and people like you and I have
Yes.
found our way into it and carved our niche into it
Yeah.
because there's so much freedom to be found that is I mean, I live for it.
Same. It's what gets me out of the bed in the
I
morning, I
know, because
swear.
otherwise
Yeah, agreed. But like, where was that? I guess like what started you on this journey of like fashion? Like, where did your love of fashion come from?
I always since I was a kid, like, since I was a little kid,
Yeah.
my grandmother sewed, my mom
So
sewed.
cool.
Like, I have this funny memory
Yes.
in childhood.
Oh.
So I would take, so I'd be wearing socks,
Okay.
and I would take, like, little blocks, and I
Yes.
would put them in my heels, and so I'd make,
Oh
like
my God,
I would turn
hilarious.
my sock into a high
Oh,
heel.
I love it.
Like, that was me as a little kid,
Yeah.
and then just getting older, I just always liked to look different, so I started sewing when I was maybe, like, 13
Yes.
and trying to teach myself on this, like, old, like, yard sale sewing machine, like, it
Yeah.
was and then here we are, like, I think there's just I'm always feeling like I'm transforming. I'm always pivoting, I'm always evolving, I'm always,
Mhm.
like, iterating, getting rid of what I love and leaning into the things that I like, and that's how I think my career has been to where people are like, "Tell me about your career," and I'm like, "What part?" Like,
Yeah,
there's so
exactly.
many
So many
different
sections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's good 'cause I get to keep becoming more and more aligned with myself, and
Mhm.
even now, I feel like I'm in another metamorphosis,
Yeah.
and it's scary, but I love it.
So then what's next?
I feel like I'm evolving to a space that still includes fashion, but is
Mhm.
not limited by fashion.
Yes. I
I'm
love
I'm
that.
evolving to a space where it's about my style and my taste
Mhm.
rather than necessarily being exclusively limited to what's on my body. And that's
I love
really
it.
exciting to me.
That is super exciting, and I think
Yeah.
liberating too.
So, because I think I'm getting to a point in my career where I don't necessarily want all the eyes on me all the
Yes,
time.
totally.
I wanna showcase, some of my other skills, and I think that's what I love about even my DIYs
Mhm.
because, half the video, you don't even see my face because 'cause you're
Yes.
looking at my hands and what I'm doing, and I love that, and I'm expanding into home and lifestyle. The pandemic taught me how much I really enjoy my personal space
Yes, totally.
and the value that I place on it and have it being comfortable, and so I've been evolving into, like, the home space
Mhm.
and just things that honestly just make me feel so good inside, and I love that.
Ah, and that's just it. I think we need to feed that inner creativity, our inner
Yeah.
child,
Yes.
and like and see how it comes out, I think, in the present moment. So I
Definitely.
cannot wait. I cannot wait to see what you do.
Thank
Can't wait to see
you.
what what creativity you get up to next.
Aw.
Where can people find you, like if they want to follow you online?
So you can find me at Mirian Njon, and that is MIRIANNJOH, and that is IG, TikTok, YouTube, like anywhere that I exist on the internet, it's gonna be at Mirian Njon.
I'm so here for it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was such a treat getting to do this after so many
Thank you
years
so
of knowing each
much.
other.
This
So
has been everything. Worlds colliding
they are,
in the
they are.
best way.
Agreed.